Hey, what's going on, you savages? Welcome to the show. I'll make it brief. Maybe I won't. Maybe it'll be long. Who knows? Who knows what I'll do? But yeah, do me a favor. Head over to traviscrutcher.com, teardownapparel.com, thealphainitiative.com. Check all those things out there in the description of this episode. Damn it, you've got no excuse. Also, here is a blatant and shameless ask. If you dig this show, do me a favor, hit me up and leave me a 5-star. That's right. I'm explicitly saying 5-star review on Apple, on iTunes. That would be fabulous. I would really appreciate that. And if you dig Tear It Down with Jess, please do the same for that show as well. I'm going to now shut up so I can thereby talk some more.
Welcome to Not Sorry with Travis Crutcher, the show where Travis will say some things that might trigger you, offend you, make you laugh, or even motivate you. So, if you're not easily offended, stick around and enjoy. On the other hand, if you are easily offended, listen anyway. Then go tell everyone how triggered you were. Either way, you can be certain of one thing. Travis is not sorry.
All right, here we go. So it's weird. In my world, right, when I'm working with individual clients, I've said this in other spaces before, I don't know what happens, if the universe just syncs up or what really transpires, but it's crazy that how over the course of a month, there's certain themes that seem to emerge. I don't know if it's seasonal or what the deal is, right? But this particular season, whatever it is, the last several weeks, in fact, when I'm working with my clients, something that keeps coming up over and over again is avoiding hard conversations. So difficult conversations, hard conversation, critical conversation, whatever verbiage you want to put on it, right? This need to avoid it. And it's really, they're not trying to avoid the conversation, right? They're trying to avoid the potential confrontation. And so I've been working with folks on about that like all month, really, it seems like. I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do a show about it, because that is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. And even if it's something that you're well versed in, you're never like stoked about having to do it, right? And so I just want to talk through some of the stuff that I've been sharing with my clients. Maybe it'll help you, because at the end of the day, let's kind of talk about what stops us, right? What stops folks from having these conversations is that potential confrontation, right? And in the moment you go, you know what? It's not even worth it, right? Like if you're listening to this, how many times have you thought to yourself, fuck, it's not even worth it, right? But the reality is, if this is a recurring thing, if this problem set continues to present over and over and over again, it probably is worth it, right? Because clearly this unity or this partnership or whatever it is not performing as optimally as it could if you were to address the issues at hand, right? And so I would challenge that thought that it's not worth it with, it certainly is worth it if it's going to help you achieve greater results in all the things that you're trying to get done. So with that, what I will say is there's some strategies you can employ, right, that are going to help you get there in a more timely manner, number one. And beyond that, it's going to help you do things in a way that is not going to jam up the relationship. All right. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today, is the strategies I've been sharing with my clients, right? Number one is prepare thoroughly. All right. This is one that I've been guilty of all of these things, doing the opposite of them in my lifetime. Right. And so that is what makes me a damn expert, right? Is I've fucking crashed and burned hard on some of these things in the past, and I've learned from those mistakes, refined them. Right. But you've got to prepare. Right. And it's not in a desire to leverage the situation just to bend to your will, right? But it is so that you know what you're doing. You're concise, right? So you got to know your facts, right? Gather as much relevant information as you possibly can so that you can understand the totality of the situation. That's important, because if there's a problem set, right? If there's something that's jamming us up, or maybe it's an interpersonal thing, right? If we don't know all the facts, then we're going to be biased going into that conversation, right? You still want to drive for like desirable end states for yourself, but you don't want to be jaded to the point where you're only speaking your talking points and you don't have any of the whole situation in mind, right? And you need to set clear objectives when you're preparing for this conversation. Know exactly what it is you want to achieve, right? And that way you can lay out the key points you want to address. You don't get drug off into down the rabbit hole of all the other bullshit, right? You want to be very clear with the objectives for the conversation. Then once you're prepared for it, right? Time and place. Time and place is huge when it comes to having a critical conversation. There's a ton of things that go into this, and obviously situation's going to dictate, but the first thing you want to do is try and ensure you have a private setting, right? Because you don't want to put this person or persons on blast if there's, big time issues that you've got to parse out and work through. You want to make sure that you're respecting everyone's positions and all that shit, right? And it's difficult sometimes because in the moment you get heated, right? In the moment you want to say, hey, knock it off, right? But you want to make sure that there's a place where, because at the end of the day, right, you want them to feel comfortable to share in response to what you have to say, because that's how you're going to get to the real source of the issue, right? It's not a one-way thing. That's important to understand as well. It's a conversation. You can't just go in and dictate a behavior change and think that's going to be the thing that works, right? I can tell you, even in my time in the military, right, when I was in leadership there, I had the authority to just go, this is the fucking way we're doing it, and shut up, right? But I wasn't going to get my team to perform optimally if I did that, right? Like, I needed that downrange feedback from them. So you have to be open to criticism, right? But they're not going to get that. You're not going to get the two-way communication you really need unless they feel comfortable. So that's why a private setting is super important. And then choose an appropriate time, right? People fuck this up too, right? I'm going to do it right now. Hold on. Like, if we're going to make sure this thing works, it's got to work for everybody, right? So you don't dictate the win. You coordinate the win. There's a big difference between dictating something and coordinating with somebody. So you want to make sure that it's going to jive with everyone's calendar, everyone's schedule, so that they're not rushed, right? Because you don't want them to have to jam this in and then they feel rushed through the thing. And if there is feedback they've got, or if there's problem sets they need to express, they don't have the time to do it. And then you really just wasted everyone's time, right? So that'll allow everyone to stay focused and calm and not get jammed up, right? Here's one, number 3, right, that I am super guilty of fucking up in the past, right? But I've gotten really good at it, right? Really good at it with lots of practice, and that is communicate with empathy. Now, you guys have heard me talk about empathy, 4 years ago when I first started the other show, I talked about empathy there. Like, it's something that I talk about in workshops constantly because it's so critical, it's so important, and it's something that is so fucking lacking, I think, in the world right now. But, and to be empathetic, right, in these situations, like, there's a couple things you really got to do. You've got to use some active listening, right? Give that person your full attention. That means, like, phones go off. Like, that the only thing that matters is this conversation, right? So again, time and place appropriate, because you want to make sure there's no distractions. And then listen without interrupting. And that is difficult. I get it, man. I understand when you've got a point to make or you want to see something happen, it is hard to listen without interrupting or interjecting, but it's important because you need to be able to hear their perspective, right? Like, some people say you need to listen to their feelings. Yeah, feelings are fucking just indicators. They're not exactly action items, but you want to be able to hear their perspective, hear their point of view, because everyone's experiencing this crazy fucking thing called life a little bit differently, right? And how you're seeing the situation may be completely contrast to how they see the situation. And you're never going to know that or be able to get that breakthrough unless you listen actively and hear their perspective, right? The other thing is, stay away from I statements, all right? I know that's difficult, especially when you really had enough of something, right? But that's even something as simple as, like, I feel concerned about deadlines being missed, right? Because you're creating a partition between you and the person. You're getting rid of the whole team aspect, right? And it sounds like you're blaming or accusing them, like they're the problem, right? When the reality is you want to say, we're struggling with whatever, or this is an important thing to the organization. How can we get there? Then they're going to tell you, well, here's what's precluding me from hitting deadlines, right? Whereas if you just say, I don't like it when you miss your deadlines, right? Or I feel concerned when you whatever, then they're going to hear blame, right? And then it's going to fuck them up. And they're not going to want to share. They're just going to feel defensive. So it's important to stay away from I statements like that, because you don't want to be blaming, because you don't know the totality of the situation. That's why we're having the conversation, right? Number 4, stay calm and composed. There's a lot of things I can tell you about this one, but it really does boil down to managing your emotion and maintaining respect. I've been in some situations with people in the past, even in the military, right, where it was not an easy thing to stay calm and composed, right? And I was able to articulate several instances, hey, in a very tactful manner, like, you need to check the way you're speaking to me, otherwise things are going to go sideways, right? And there's a way to do it, right? It's a way to do it. And that does turn the tide of a conversation, right? But you can't get in your emotions. You can't get in your feels about it, because those are going to override your intent a lot of times. And what happens is, if we express with emotion, like a lot of it, anger, frustration, whatever those things are that drove you to have this conversation in the first place, if that's what takes front street, then your actual messaging is going to get lost in the static. When I was a drill sergeant, I decided one cycle, like it was my second cycle, I'm like, I'm just not going to yell. I'm just not going to yell at all, unless I absolutely have to. It's a safety violation or whatever. I'm just not going to raise my voice. And what I got was better results than a lot of my cohorts because I was not losing the messaging in the delivery, right? They were listening to what I had to say, not how I was saying it. So it's very important to maintain your composure, stay calm, right? And then the last one, number 5, this is the big one, the big takeaway, right? Is you need to try and seek solutions, not blame, right? You wouldn't have brought the person in. If you just bring someone in to bitch at them, stop it. You're a toxic leader. Get the fuck out of there, right? You're toxic in your relationship. Get the fuck out of there. Come back when you can grow the fuck up. But if you're here to seek solutions, then you don't want to blame, right? You want to have collaborative solutions. You guys want to work together to find mutually acceptable solutions. So focus on problem solving rather than assigning blame, all right? And then this one is wildly important, right? We fuck this up so much. In business spaces, people screw this up. Leadership roles, they screw this up. But man, the one place that it bites people in the ass more often than not is in their relationships. And that's follow up, right? And you know, it sounds a little over the top to have an action plan for a critical conversation with a loved one, right? But it's essential because now we've got expectations. Now we've got a plan, a way forward, and we can check in with each other, right? So if you agree on these actionable steps, whatever it is, leadership, corporate setting, or in that relationship, right? Agree on the actual steps and then set follow-up times, right? And it doesn't have to be set in stone, right? But just like, hey, you know, in a couple of weeks, I'm checking in with you on this, or in a couple of days, let's double back and see how this is going, because you want to make sure that the changes that you've put in place are actually affecting the change you want to create. And if not, then that's a great opportunity to refine and re-engage. But if you just say it once, you have the conversation, everybody agrees. I mean, you've been there, right? Who in every situation, professional, personal, I guarantee you've been in a situation where you come to these great, grandiose agreements, right? And that's the end of the conversation. There's no follow-up. And then 3 months later, you're having the same fucking argument or the same conversation, right? That's because you didn't follow up with them. You didn't set these keystone times to go, hey, look, these benchmark moments. Hey, are we good? Are we on track? Is everything working? If not, then let's re-engage, right? So you've got to follow up, right? And that's it. That is all I'm going to give you. If you can, inculcate those 5 steps, recap them, right? Real quick. You want to make sure that, you're prepared thoroughly, choose the right time and place, communicate with empathy, even though that is very difficult. Even more difficult is to stay calm and composed and then seek solution and not blaming. I'm telling you, those critical conversations are going to go so much better for you, and you're going to get way better results out of them. All right. So because I've been dealing with it so much in the last month, I realized maybe this is just the universe giving me a hint to do a whole episode on it. That's what I did. So anyway, hope you guys dug it. Hope you took something away from it, and I will talk to you next time. Later.